It is day 23 of working on the business. I'm here with my great friend Jay Allen, and we're going to be talking about the Sunday Scaries and certain techniques and tools that you can utilize in order to combat that. So before we get started, let's do a quick introduction. So Jay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, how's it going? So I'm an elementary school counselor in the Midwest, and I'm also a new self-publishing author.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. A lot of people do want to become authors, so that's really cool that you already wrote your book. Like, when did you write it?
Yeah, so I wrote it in the past 2 years, and it released this past December, so I'm really excited on the topic.
What's it focused on?
It's focused on mindfulness.
Okay, so that relates kind of to what we're dealing with here.
Yep.
In this case. Cool. Okay, so we'll talk more about that, but let's get into it. So we're going to be creating a flowchart just to show kind of like what's the problem. So we're going to describe what are the Sunday Scaries. We're going to talk about some end cases, some solutions, and certain paths where you may be thinking, like, you're like, oh yeah, I didn't really think about that. Now, before we get into it, just as a disclaimer, we're not professionals here, right? We're talking about like these are just techniques and tools that helped us personally, but if you do need professional help, resources, reach out. But this is just tips and techniques that helped us out. Yeah. So first question is, what would you describe are the Sunday Scaries?
All right. So the Sunday Scaries are, the day before a work week, and it's a day that you might have some struggles on this day. So you might get some anxieties about the work week. Maybe you feel a little bit depressed because the work week is coming. And it could happen maybe Sunday morning. For me, it usually happens Sunday night around 7. But, I will say, I just said earlier, I'm an elementary school counselor. I love my job. It is definitely what I want to be for probably the rest of my life. But even though I love my job, I still get nervous on Sunday night here and there just because maybe I've just had a really fun weekend. But now I got 5 days of work coming up. So that's kind of my definition of that.
Oh, that's interesting though. So that just goes to show you can truly be in the right path. You love what you're doing, but you still have these kind of obstacles and challenges that appear before the work week happens.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'll tell you what, how about we get right into it? I'm going to share my screen. We're going to do a flow chart, and we're just going to start off from there. And if you're with us so far, please do me a huge favor. If you can like and subscribe, it does me such a huge favor. Currently a smaller channel, growing, but if this is something that you're like, yeah, you know what, there's a lot of negativity out there and all the social media, and this is actually providing value and helpful, this helps me know and create more content similar to this. So, okay, so right here, we got it listed out. I'm going to do my best to zoom in so then if you're watching, you can see it bigger on your screen. But the first thing I like to do is list out what is the problem, the solution, and then we'll create these little boxes here that kind of help show the thought process that can go into it to help give certain techniques, because what may be your thought process may be a little bit more challenging for somebody else.
Yeah,
true. And you may have a solution that is just for this particular issue, but maybe somebody else may be feeling a different way, but you kind of already solved it, so we'll go through it. But first question then is, what would you say is the problem? So let's just define this problem right here.
All right, so the problem for me is that, on Sundays, I get a lot of anxiety. So like Mark just said earlier, that some people might feel differently. They might get kind of sad on this day. Some people might feel more anger. But for me, I just get more anxious.
Okay, so it's anxiety before the work week.
Yeah. It's my mind just keeps thinking about what's coming up next. I kind of feel anxious inside. There's sometimes when I feel anxiety, I kind of feel it in my chest a little bit. So
I wrote down, you get anxiety the day before the work week. Yeah. Your mind is anxious about what's about to happen, and it ruins the free time or the free day that you have because you're just fearing about the future.
Yeah, it really takes over my Sunday nights. So
perfect. And I think that is something that a lot of people feel, so I'm glad that we're talking about this. Okay, and just to give the straightforward solution at this point, what are some of the solution points that you would say help you out the most if you're to just get straight to the answer?
Okay. Well, what I would say is definitely have just a really healthy weekend with a lot of self-care. So for example, for me, that self-care would be doing a lot of walks in nature. Love walking with my dog. Another thing would be getting some exercise, maybe in other ways. So maybe I would go to the gym. I love meditation. So the more I meditate, the calmer I feel. So if I can have a weekend filled with those things, it's great. But a lot of times that doesn't always happen. So.
Okay, so we can get into that and find out, what are some of the reasons why maybe you don't have a healthy weekend. So it sounds like when you do have a healthy weekend, does it completely eliminate your Sunday scaries, or does it help reduce it greatly?
Yeah, I would say reduce it greatly.
Okay, so it's something like it doesn't fully eliminate it, but it helps reduce it.
It's like kind of like anxiety. Like I get anxious a lot, but usually I can keep it on a low if I do healthy coping strategies or self-care options.
Perfect. Okay. So now we can get through that and then also figure out ways in which you can have potentially traps where maybe you may not have a healthy weekend. So we can discuss that as well.
Sure, that sounds good. I'm excited. Let's go.
Okay, so let's start off. We got a little box here, and as time progresses, we'll be listing out here. If it does come up where we don't have enough time, because we don't want to keep you guys here for too long in this video, because we could keep going and going. This is definitely a deep topic that we could discuss for hours on end. But I'll be planning to leave a link also in the description as well. I may just finish it up even after this video, but let's describe the first topic, which is a great thing. So I think a great starting point is like, okay, number one, you feel that the Sunday scaries are happening, right?
Yeah.
So would we want to first describe before the Sunday scaries happen, like maybe on a Friday, to make sure that you have a great weekend? So then when that Sunday morning, Sunday evening happens, you're already in a great spot? Or do we want to take it from the standpoint of, all right, it is already like the anxiety time, how you handle it in that moment, and then how you can prepare yourself for the end of the next week?
Tough question, but let's go with the Friday idea. We'll start with the Friday and see. We'll talk about how to prepare for like a good weekend, to prepare for a good week.
Perfect. Okay. So you find yourself saying, it's the end of the work week. It's the end of the work week. Okay. Friday evening. Okay, perfect. So we put ourselves in the position that it's the end of the work week. It's a Friday evening. What would be something that would potentially take you into a path of success, or one that would potentially be like a trap that would put you in a bad state and kick the ball off in the wrong direction?
Okay, so you want the trap? Or a trap first, or you want a success?
Whichever way you want.
I guess something that would prevent me from having a good one is the lack of sleep. So if I got a really low sleep Friday night, that would not be really good for me.
Okay, so we can write that down.
Because when I have low sleep, I get really anxious the next day. So in order for me to have a really low anxiety day, gotta have a good 8 hours sleep. Well, 7 to 8 hours.
Okay, and that's for like Friday evening and Saturday, but at this point in time, we're dealing with the Friday evening, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's Friday evening. Make sure to get a great 8 hours of sleep. Otherwise, your Saturday is effed.
Yeah.
We're not gonna write that down, but is off to a bad start. Okay. So you want to make sure that you get a great 8 hours of sleep on that Friday evening. So then the next question, I think is a natural question, is how do we make sure that you would get a great 8 hours of sleep? So let me actually physically write out this question. How can you make sure to actually get a great 8 hours of sleep? Question mark. Perfect. So let's think about some thoughts. What would be some great ways to make that happen for you?
Well, so I'm a very social person, and I think so. I like to hang out with my friends that night. If I would cut my hangout off by like 8 p.m., I think that'd be a good idea for me, or like 9 p.m. But sometimes I like to hang out past that, 10, 11, have some fun, who knows. And the later I stay out, the less I'm going to sleep, and the harder the day will be the next day.
So what you're saying is that having a cutoff at 9 p.m., let's just say 9 p.m. would be ideal.
And that would be, it would be ideal. I know a lot of us don't like to do that on a Friday night, but that would be the goal.
That'd be the goal. Okay, makes sense. So then 9 p.m. would be ideal. And then we can also write down, I'll zoom in for you guys at home so you can see what we're writing here. Cutoff. Hangouts at 9 p.m. would be ideal. Okay. So a great answer. Cut off at 9 p.m. How can we make sure to not stay out longer past then? Because it sounds like that's a temptation, like, right? That could be a trap. So let's write that down and ask that. How can we make sure to actually stop the hangout at 9 p.m.? And this is where we come up with a solution.
Yes, and that is a good question, and I honestly am not quite sure on this one right now.
Okay.
I could maybe set some alarms. I could try to talk it over with this friend beforehand, like, hey, I have to go by a certain time and I can't stay out any longer.
Okay, so we got set an alarm and discuss with your friend ahead of time.
Yeah.
And just for the audience watching at home here, the benefit of these flowcharts is not necessarily that you have to have the right answer, right? You may not have the answer, in which this is a situation where you said, I don't have the best answer. It's a struggle. It's something that you're dealing with, working with, but at least you wrote down kind of a step right here. And now in the future, you may find yourself that you are having these hangouts and you're staying way past, and setting an alarm did not help. Discussing with your friend may not have helped. So now you can come back to this and think of a different solution, something that's different that may help or may not.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Thanks,
Mark.
You are welcome. I like that. So professional. Oh, shoot. All right, so that is one thing. Is there anything else that would potentially stop you from not reaching your cutoff of a 9 p.m., of getting your 8 hours of sleep? Or another question is maybe an issue for somebody else. Like, I would think that what was a common reason that people don't go to bed on time? Like maybe their phone. Like oftentimes they're on that because it's like with the like with the friends, but then when they're by themselves, you can see like they're scrolling and they're staying up way too late because they're just tired and like wanting to watch Netflix and that. So
that's true. I don't. Sometimes I find myself doing this where I do end up scrolling a little bit, and you start at like 8:55, and next thing you know, it's 10:30. So I guess one option would be putting the phone away, maybe like putting it in like a box. Me and my fiance at home actually do have a phone box where when we want some time away from the screen, we put our phones in the box to get away. So that is a really good idea.
Okay, so then, let's write that down. So this is going to be like a second pathway. I think for the time being that we have right now, I think these are the two main points.
Yeah.
And then we can just wrap it up and go from there. So let's write that down. So we got to say avoid spending too much time using technology. And we'll say phones, Netflix, etc. Okay. Boom.
Yeah, screens, they take over sometimes.
They're great, but then you're right. They can...
Yeah, we need them, but we got to learn how to balance them or use them the correct way.
And that's that's for a different topic. Just saying, like you and I, we both grew up, finally, like phones got introduced, probably high school, college era. But it's just so interesting to see like these kids at restaurants and they got like the iPads right in front of their face the whole time. Like, what is going on there?
And get this, so I'm an elementary school counselor, and a lot of the kids that I work with, even kids that are like 5 years old, even in 4K, the ones that seem to be struggling a little bit more are the ones that have like a lot of iPad time or a lot of screen time in their afternoons. So I'm seeing it, and it's hard to see sometimes.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is like brand new. It's like probably the earlier, it's like the freshest generation that have these. So then there's not like a lot of studies, most likely. Again, not professionals, but it's just like our observations, personal observations. Like, wonder if there will be more studies, and will there be a link between that, like behavior and using technology at too much of a younger age?
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to make sure that we capture what you mentioned here. So avoid
Yeah.
spending too much time using technology. How can you make sure to get off your screen at a reasonable hour? And remind me again, what was our solution for something like that? So if you want to get off the screen, like...
in my opinion, it would literally be setting a timer, and then when that timer goes off, put your phone in a different room so you can get away from it. Because even if you put it next to your bedside, it is so easy. And I find myself doing this all the time, to just reach and check it again. And next thing you know, you're in another doom scroll, as they say sometimes.
And I'm sure maybe that's not the best technique or the most effective technique for somebody else, right? Because we set right here with your friends, setting an alarm was one, discussing with a friend ahead of time was another option. What are some other options that people could use if it's not just setting a timer and putting it in a different spot?
All right, another option would be, going in silent mode maybe, or airplane mode at a certain time. What do you think?
Airplane mode. I think that falls under having a timer at the same time.
Okay.
I'm wondering if an app, because there's got to be apps out there that shut off or deny you access at a certain time.
That's true.
So it's one is you set up the timer yourself, but another one is you have an app that actually helps you.
Nice, that's a good idea.
Okay. Utilize an app to turn off.
If you find that app, let me know, because I'd like to use it.
Or we gotta write it then. Ooh.
Part 2.
Part 2. Be this is the video that started it all. Okay, so I think we got those two. And I think that's just a great start.
Yeah.
And then ultimately is we could even add more to this. But ultimately, I think this does a great job of just saying hey, the problem
it's
is...
a good start.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great start, and it defines our problem in which, hey, you're experiencing this on the weekend. Let's get ahead of it, see where the traps are. Certain traps, you may not have the best answer, but at least you listed it out and you have it there. So with that being said, let's put the camera back on us, and I want to get your honest feedback because we just went through the process of flowcharting. I found this to be very helpful for myself. Can you please describe for me what you liked about it and what could be better?
Yeah. Well, for sure, what I liked about it is it kind of reminds me of journaling, and something that I do not do enough. Sometimes when I want to make a plan for something, I just keep thinking about it in my head and thinking, where it's really good to write it out. So you're marking this type of graph, or what do you call it again?
It's just doing a flowchart.
Yeah,
I gotta come up with a good name for this, honestly.
Yeah, so you writing this flowchart really reminds me of just kind of journaling it. And then when you see it, it helps kind of remind you of hey, what to do next. Instead of, sometimes what I do is I forget about the plan I came up with. So I really liked it.
Oh, thank you. No, and that's true, because oftentimes we'll come up with kind of a promise to ourselves, okay, I know I'm having this issue, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then later on, you're oh shoot, what did I do? And then you find yourself repeating the same pattern for weeks on end, or in this case, it'll be every week, because you're kind of going through the same motions and it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so we're already at the end of the video. If you guys haven't already, if you could like and subscribe, you'd be doing me a huge favor. Let me know that I should be pushing out more content similar to this. And also, I want to give a big thanks over here to Jay Allen for coming on.
Thank you.
And
I really appreciate it.
And working with me here. So I want to know, and I'm sure the audience wants to know as well, just tell us briefly about what you've been working on, because you said you're an author. A lot of people want to become authors, they always had it in their mind, but they just never had the guts to do it. So just describe briefly about it, and then of course how to follow you, because see your journey and what you've been working on.
Yeah, well, two things. So I just released a book in December. It's called Finding Calm by the Katrina Calm series, and it's in between an MG genre, which is middle grade, and YA, a young adult genre, and it just follows a girl in middle school who is really struggling with anxiety. And she also has a bully, so that adds on to her anxiety. And she also has some friends, and one friend deals with anger, another friend deals a little bit with depression. So they kind of all have their thing they're dealing with. And there's a lot of coping strategies in the book on how she copes, especially with her anxiety. So, for example, there is a mindfulness club in the book, and I love mindfulness. So,
or even if you got like kids at home or somebody that is dealing with this, because as we already were describing in the flow chart, there are kids that are using technology, they're going through different issues, so then you're already hands-on seeing this and you provide that kind of perspective, so then maybe it helps out kids that are in that age.
Exactly. If you want to ever follow me on that, you can follow me on Instagram. It's just at Katrina Calm Series.
Perfect. All right, well, thank you again. Thank you so much for being on here. Hopefully this helped with the flowchart. I'm going to leave all the links in the description, so ways to follow the Katrina series as well as the flowchart.
Yes. And thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, high five. Yeah, we'll do it that way. And we'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.